how did we get here? What happened throughout the last 20 years that brought us to this specific situations where we're trying to understand what's the role of programming, what's the role of game design, and actual systems design, and all of that new world that was generated by LLM AIs. And LLM stands by large language models, which is pretty recent technology. It really ramped up after 2023, but has been, in the labs, had been studied for a bit longer, since 2000, late 2019, early 2020, started from a Google article. And LLM, which is, like I said, a large language model. They are basically what we know as ChatGPT nowadays. Everybody knows about that, was the first big one. And obviously, it's something supposed to work with language, right? That's its scope. So nowadays we talk about image transformation, video generation, and it might be sometimes fuzzy in our minds. How can something made to work with words be so, encompassing and tackle so many different areas? But the trick is really that pretty much anything can be encoded in words. And when you're talking about logic and computer programming is basically logic, right? Translated into some form of encoding, which can be as low level as assembly, which is the lowest level you can get away from pure binary. And at this very low level, you can barely understand what's going on. So we humans created this upper layer, and higher level languages, which basically allow us to understand what and communicate to the computer what's it doing, and basically understand what other people commanded the computer to do, right? That's what programming is about. In a very simplified fashion, you can think of programming like a sophisticated cake recipe, not much more than that. And many times people say, hey, but a recipe is just following steps. Programming is more than that. Is it really? When you take a recipe, do you really follow it blindfolded, or do you actually fill in the gaps? Like, yeah, add flour, add milk, add this and that. And sometimes it's very generic, right? But we're adaptive. We just start, realizing that, hey, maybe I don't have enough milk. How can I compensate? Maybe less water, maybe this, maybe that. And we do that without even thinking. But when you're talking about programming, you really have to be super detailed about every minute detail, because the computer uh, by default will not infer anything. And that's the key word here. LLMs, they infer a lot. From a broad context, they basically try to deduce what you want, what you're trying to communicate. And that's both a blessing and a curse. If your quality bar is low, you can get prototype with a single prompt, which is what we call, it started being called as prompt engineering. Oh, people just learning that the best prompt will give you a full game in a single prompt. It's like magic. But those are prototypes, right? They're not full games. And honestly, if you cannot tame the thing, if you cannot understand it, you most probably will not be able to make it your own. So these are problems which have been, going on in our minds as programmers since the early days of, at beginning, just Copilot, just autocomplete, right? And we got all this movement of tools. And the problem of not being able to understand or tame the code and make it your own, because again, it's not critical that you should be able to read everything that the computer wrote or created or automatically programmed for you, because that's low level code. And that's a very important understanding that we have to share together. What's low level code? What's something that a glorified autocomplete machine created for us? And how do we compare that to actual overarching architecture and intent and game design? Those are things which, if you ask the computer to do, it's going to do. But remember one thing, the LLMs, they work with data they've gathered before, right? This data is vectorized. It basically create mathematical formulas to try and converge into average solutions, which is basically an average of all the responses that creates those vectors for, and I'm simplifying it obviously, but it's something like that. It converges into averages. And those averages, they have this minor deviation, which is like a random factor, basically something injected into the system to make it a bit more realistic because reality is chaotic. It's pretty random, at least to our limited understanding of the universe, right? So basically, in a nutshell, that's how those machines work. So anyone who has struggled in a mobile phone trying to complete a phrase and then, autocomplete started popping up words that you never meant for, and you get upset about it, everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's just trying to predict the next word. It's trying to predict the next thing. And as it's doing that, it might be right, and most times it'll be probably depending on the complexity of what you want to do. But if there's one thing you can be sure of is that it will never read your mind. At least there's no such technology. I know Elon Musk is working on something like that, but it's not right there, right? So, um, and then you have the problem of intent. If you don't understand and if you don't develop this muscle about design, both on the conceptual perspective and on the implementation aspect, and by conceptual, understand, game design per se, and the actual implementation aspect of it, you will not have control of what's being produced. And again, if your quality bar is low and you're not trying to do anything really new, that won't be a problem, right? But if you are trying to build something from scratch, there's no data that the machine could infer from. Like it'll try its best, and it can work great for many things, like especially as a partner. I call it the programming factor, right? But yeah, you have a very hard time getting it to create something from scratch, especially because of the feedback loop of creative design, which I'll be talking in a bit. Go on, Yarif.
Thank you. I just had a question for you about AI integration and previous
Yeah, sure.
traditional workflows. How important is it for someone to learn previous traditional workflows in the process of actually building your own game?
Previous what? Sorry, I missed that.
Workflows.
Oh, you mean like the techniques that were used in the past?
Like, for instance, somebody learns Substance Painter or ZBrush or pipeline of
Hmm.
properly doing things and designing things and doing things, from, without AI.
Hmm.
Is that still a needed thing to know how to do? Or can a person skip those fundamentals and jump right into what it is that they wish to do?
Yeah, great question. So it's all about this layer that you have between your intent and building comprehension about the intent, be it business logic, if it's a serious application, or game design, is the number one thing which you cannot never miss. The thing is, how thick should you keep that layer? And that will vary from person to person. Some people like really tight control and will want to review their work really close for your specific questions. Substance Painter, for instance, it's a tool that you're going to be using for things like detailing, texturing, and maybe when you generate texturing using a 3D generation tool. And I really work with them. I don't have a problem with that. And I'm an old-fashioned 3D modeler myself. Things like Triple. Triple has an amazing 3D model generation. There's a Chinese model which is amazing as well, Tencent one, Huawei, I think that's the name of it, which is free, and I highly recommend it. But what it generates, it'll have a certain blurriness with it, which you can improve by hand using other tools, which are not exactly AI based. And that's what the industry has been using recently, at least, the professionals that I've seen working with that. But some people would just want to edit things by hand at some point. Usually, I do a hand pass on everything that I want to produce at a top level quality, at least, right? So it's a bit like in programming, where you have this really shaped up formula or setup that you have to be very clear and very restrictive to the LLM to generate the kind of logic and project setup that you can add it yourself later, that you'll no longer be a slave to the machine, because there are many problems with that, things like the dump zone, things that we'll discuss throughout the course, and how to tame the context memory to your best advantage, to the best possible results. So, and that's called harnessing, by the way. It's controlling the machine. That you tie it up so tight that it cannot escape your grip. And the latest model, latest strategy is actually called Gauntlet. I think that's a great name, because you're really trying to keep that tight grip and control the machine to pull off the kind of structured logic architecture that both you want to read or are able to read, because you won't always want to read it, right? Sometimes you will just, okay, it's working and that's great. Remember, your player does not play code. Your player plays an experience. That's something I've said to students since forever, since 2013 that I remember. So it's nothing new to me. Like people getting, super obsessed by code generation, they totally miss the mark. The most important part of the code generation is pseudocode, the pseudocode. And pseudocode is not even syntax constraint code. So I envision that code will no longer be limited to, like, there will be code because you need this um, formality, you need this rigidness, because the machine cannot, if you leave the machine inferring too much, you cannot assure it's going to produce what it wants. That's the thing. So you need these kinds of constraints in the language, but things like syntax errors because your if line had no parentheses, and this language uses parentheses, this other language does not use parentheses, this will disappear. I'm pretty sure it's a matter of maybe a couple of years until people realize that that's it's nonsense to keep this. Um, but again, there's some part of it which will be kept because it helps you debug the code. It helps point to you, hey, that's a problem. It's not a syntax error. It's something like which may result in a no pointer. So back to your point, it really varies from artist to artist if we're talking about specific art generation. But what I see is, especially in big game studios, they're using it for prototypes, prototypical art, like mock-up art pieces. And then they go through the process of actually building it by hand, optimizing it by hand, which is, things like topology in the 3D model. It's very, very hard to expect to get good one. Even ZBrush, which has got AI generated topology since forever, people forget about that, but it's been there for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And it's hard to get perfect topology, but you get a good start. It's much easier for a modeler to start from a good, well-formed model than to do that from, scratch. It is harder. It's just harder. And you have to go through the process of, front, side, top view generation, which the AI can also help with. And it's something that I do. I can even show you guys. I think would be a cool showcase of the artistic side of the course as well. Um, but yeah, if you will necessarily need to learn substance, I wouldn't say so. But at least some AI-powered tools which help you hand place your texturing. I think that's a good thing to learn. But it'll change a lot. Depends on the style that you want. The quality, the realism, or whatever specific aspect that you're tackling. Right? Hope that answers your question. Did someone raise its hand? I think I saw something like that. Okay, if not, we can just move on.
Hi.
Let's give me.
Just a quick
Oh
follow-up.
yeah, go
Just a
ahead.
quick follow-up. Sorry, just a quick follow-up. So you're saying that you should be aware of those traditional workflows as you specify your intention.
Totally, Totally. Intention is the most important thing. And yes, it is true that sometimes for you to build comprehension and understanding of the topic, you have to get your hands wet, dirty. You know, you really have to get into the nitty-gritty details of it so you can better understand why do I need a normal map for this, and I shouldn't use a vertex shader for this, for instance, or oh, let me use I don't know, screen space image occlusion. Why can't you just bake screen space image occlusion? It might be abstract if you haven't actually tried both approaches. But again, all of those strategies can be accelerated, your understanding of it can be accelerated through LLMs usage, both in understanding the actual professional tools that you're using and learning the specific steps, the topics, techniques themselves. And the techniques will always change. They will always evolve, regardless. Be it Blender, 3D modeling, whatever, they will always be, continuously updating. But the fundamentals they will not change, and understanding those fundamentals is more important. Yeah, total. Anyone else?
So I'm actually a 3D artist, and my question, I might be jumping ahead, but
Mhm.
my question is, how do I use AI in my workflow and improve my work?
That's a great question. For a Unreal Engine, it's pretty tough because it's not, to the art specifically. It's not the focus of the engine, and we do know it's possible. There are great artists working on it, and there are some good games being done with it. But compared to other solutions like even Godot, which started as a 2D engine, by the way, and Unity, it's honestly very shallow. It's so if you're like, hey, I like blueprints, I can already do it. And we're going to be talking about blueprints being deprecated too. But if that's something you really want to do, you can do it. It's far from impossible. But in terms of the actual production of the art, what I do recommend is, especially for if you're pixel artists, because there are two main branches of to the art. It's what we call pixel art, which back in my day it was just art because the resolution was like 256 by 192. That was everything we had. So there was no such thing as pixel art. It was just art, right? But anyways, nowadays you have this high definition to the art, and which you get in games like Braid and so many others, and this low definition, which we call art, which we call pixel art. For pixel art, the tools are pretty good. They're pretty robust right now. I just don't find them very consistent, especially when you're
Uh, sorry,
generating
sorry to
different
interrupt.
facets of the character. Yeah, go on.
I think you misheard. I said I'm a 3D, not 2D.
Oh, 3D artist. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I heard 2D. My bad. Okay, yeah, for 3D, yeah, I think I should, let's stop talking a bit. Let me share my screen and let me show some of the process that I'm doing right now. I think it'll be better. Um, just exit this. Let me go straight to triple. Okay, that's triple 3D. And these are some models that I've been working recently. And okay, so how do I do this? So basically, I started from a concept. And by the way, you have some free credits if you want to test Ripple. It's got the best model generation technology right now. This is one of them that I do recommend. The other one is Tencent Huawei. It's a bit sorry, Hunyuan. I keep messing up the name. Yeah, this is Hunyuan. It's Tencent's 3D model, and it's really, really cool. For instance, you can hear, oh, this one is fully free. You just have like 20 times usage per day, but I never got even close to spending that in a day. You have to be a machine or maybe outputting 100 assets a day. That's hard to come up with. And you can have multiple accounts, of course. Don't tell them I told you that. But anyways, you can just use image to 3D, single image or multiple images. If you go here, you have low poly, stage generation, and yeah, as you can see here, you have all those views, but actually just need two of them, maybe front view and right view. That's enough to generate anything. I can just make a quick demo here for, I have already generated this, but let's just do it again. So this is the front view, yeah. So this is one of the characters for my cartoonish mobile strategy game. Yeah, so let's get the, I think it's the right view that I got here. Yeah. So let me get those two. And let me show you the, I'm getting the other screen, the source art that I use for that concept. So I started from this here. Okay, that was concept art for Dung Rider. Dung Rider. It's Guano Wars. It's basically a game based on the idea that radioactive guano took over the world after post-apocalyptic events. And yeah, the bats survived because they were in caves and they're metamorphed in those humanoid creatures. And yeah, that's the cavalry-like unit. And yeah, I got this from partially the original artist concept and partially the result of tweaking and exchanging ideas with the LLM. I used ChatGPT latest model for this, and the image generation is pretty damn good. I haven't tested Grok Image 2 latest model. I've heard great things out of it, but best results I've been getting is from GPT Image 2.0. Okay, so basically I asked it to generate the front side views. I got a couple others. And from that, you can just click on generate now. It'll take a queue. It'll take some time to just get it started. Obviously, it's different from Triple where I did something similar. It's also got multi-view, image to 3D. You see front, left, right, back, which you can just add here. And you have options like 8K texture. Of course, this is paid, so you got your full credits. I've spent some already. And when you generate something, you spend that. Okay, so if you check the wireframe, you can see that the latest Smart Mesh P 2.0, which actually was released, I think, yesterday or 2 days from now. And that's the crazy thing about the scores that I've talked to John Mark about that. Basically, I'll be updating things literally on the fly, not because I want it, but because the scene is like that. Everything is so convulsively fast and everything is just popping up. Like every day we got news. And of course I'll be on top of it. But yeah, you can see that it did project the texturing. I actually spent the 20 credits or so to generate textures. Not perfect, gives you a good base. So that's the point where when you see those errors, I would paint it, the texture generated, I would just send it to Blender or Maya, whatever, with the texture as an FBX using export option. Then I would paint it over. And if you ask me, hey, how about the topology? This sucks. I'll tell you, yeah, this sucks. This is very bad topology. But this is good topology, right? This is really on the mark. This is way too dense. So as an artist, it is your role as a human to evaluate. And that's the problem with the whole loop of creating, executing, and refining. So creating should be up to you. Yeah, use the AI as your partner. It's a great partner. You're not sure about one idea or the other. Many times just asking the AI and the AI will respond something stupid will just make you sure that you're on the right track. And anyways, it's a good dynamic regardless. But the refining aspect of it has to go through the human part of it again, right? Which is you, because there's no tool in any LLM which can replace the brain evaluation. The human brain evaluation, it's what we call subjective. It's the human wet brain doing this evaluation, and that's up to you, right? That's the piece which the LLM cannot replace. So why would you expect it to do it? It can't. So anyways, if you're seeing it and you're like, hey, that shadow doesn't make sense for the art that I want, really, you just go and paint it over. So that's where, honestly, trying to ask the AI to take the generated texture and fix it would be a terrible use of your time and resources because you're paying for tokens and all of that, right? And some things you just want to remesh elsewhere. For instance, I would use a brush to remesh this, and it would do it 10 times better. honestly, this tip of the hat. Or maybe I wouldn't care. I'm like, yeah, that's good enough. I won't be the foreman, but this guy, maybe I want to make that. So that's when I would be, needing a better topology because it won't be rigid. I want to, I don't know, maybe do some flapping and contracting, stretching. Then I need more space at those large polygons for it to deform properly, unless I'll be having skinning issues. So the AI is very effective in a bad way in that it just tries to solve this problem. It will not keep the full view of, hey, this is going to be animated, this is going to go through rigging. It doesn't know really, right? It doesn't have for instance, this tool doesn't know what I'm going to be using this specific asset for, right? Doesn't. So I know what I want. I know that I want and that's an idea I had for this specific game. I want to use vertex colors. So I'll be basically projecting this texture onto vertices. So I'll probably be adding loops, on tighter spots to take advantage of the shading, the AO baking thing that it did here, right? And then I'm going to be clearing off these aspects. So I might not even add the texture. I'll just tweak the vertex color later, So that's one idea. And the AI cannot know about that. And many times you won't have the idea beforehand. You have the idea after you see the actual asset and like, yeah, this can, like be like this or like that. And then you'll be thinking, hey, maybe for this asset here, for this hut that I created for the game. It's not great resolution here. Kind of sucks compared to the concept art, but it's a static. It's going to be small on screen, and there's no zoom in the game. It's like a fixed zoom strategy like game. So it could be good enough. And if it's in my polygon budget, you have to consider, is it worth it, to remesh this entire model? Maybe it is, this is, it's not perfect. This is like 50K, but maybe it isn't. Maybe you just have two of those on screen and that's not even a problem. So that's the things where AI will not be able to anytime soon get close to
What about the
replacing.
creative aspect of things? Do you think that like the
Mhm.
interpretation of your design being done by you is sometimes a little bit more efficient than relying on the AI and spending a lot more time trying to make something work that doesn't quite work?
It's really about taste and intent, like I said. So, intent, the origin, taste, the end of it. Because when you have the intent, you might not be able to apply your taste yet. You need to have something. Even when you're drawing on paper, that's how you do it intuitively. We don't think about that. But if you think about it now that I'm saying it, it might make sense that as you're drawing something in your mind, it's like perfect. Oh my God, this unit will be amazing. And it's cloudy in your mind, right? It's a very raw idea. You kind of know what you want, and you imagine the shape of it, and you start adding lines on paper, and like, no, that's a bit too chubby. Maybe it's too thin. Maybe doesn't fit the style. Maybe. When you see it, it's something else. It's a different experience. And that's where taste and intention just wrap up the entire cycle, and you keep iterating it from, taste, intent. So the thing where LLM speeds things up, it's the actual execution part coming from intent, which sometimes might be just text, right? But when I generated this concept the first time, it wasn't anywhere close to what I wanted. It was very, very, I don't have the screenshots here for Nelly, but it wasn't good. I was like, no, that's not what I want. So I started adding other references. I added more descriptions. I'm like, no, I don't want a cement there. I want plaster. I want cardboard because it's post-apocalyptic. Those are freaking bats that they don't know how to use cement. That makes no sense. It's just in my mind. It's just my construct. What I think would be cool for that game. How can the AI know that? It cannot infer that. It can give you some hints, which sometimes will suck, sometimes they will be good. But yeah, like I said, you have to keep using the tool as an accelerator for the starting concept and or intent and the taste evaluation thing. So just iterate faster. Just like in game development, the faster you can iterate, the faster you can get to a result that pleases you, right? That's the whole idea. All right, let's see if I can actually open my keynote. I have been trying to do that for some time. If you could help me. Wait, not you. Come on, what are you doing? My system is fighting me. Come on, Explorer. I know you can do that. That'll be on my Real AI Bootcamp. Yeah. Just a second. Let me get that. Fix Live. Real AI. Oh, it isn't here. What is that? Real AI. Oh, yeah, got it. It's not here. It's there. Got it. Bootcamp keynote. So docx. Almost there. Okay, found it. Let me just drag it to this guy. Bear with me, should be quick. It's just the GDP program, so let me close this down. And Vertex. Vertex and Real AI. Yeah, that's the one. The Cam keynotes. Opening with Google Slides. Hope it works now. Okay, so yeah, meanwhile, let me just quickly check the text. Martin said he agrees, knowing the tool you're working with and the workflow allows you to create better tools through AI like Cloud Code to be able to make your tool as efficient as possible. Exactly. And that's what MCPs are about, really. We'll be talking that in a second. Question for later, be curious about where AI laws stand for IPs now. Last I heard, nothing could be correct from AI. Is this good? What about partial AI? Like only some parts of the product image is AI. You get a model from AI, but then you tweak and improve it manually. So yeah, that's a great question. The thing with IP struggling is real. What happens really is I recommend, especially for professional production, if it's something that you're doing, for learning purposes for yourself, or even for a free entertainment product, like people create those cartoons and animations based on IP from someone else, it's fine. If you're going to make it commercially, you better make sure that whatever you've trained your assets on is valid, is legal, and most importantly, if you can make sure that it's trained on your own content. So, for instance, this art that you guys saw, it was generated from original assets that I trained, which were, created by a human artist. So there was already the style, there was already already had the definition of multiple characters. So iterating and creating new characters for this kind of art is 100% safe. I'm not saying it's possible to identify its signature unless it's a really sloppy AI in the sense of not actually using vectors to create image, but instead using segments of images. Unfortunately, that has been happening, especially in Asian, some lower or faster AI models. They tend to use almost copy pasta, which is easily identifiable. So I would recommend against this kind of approach. And it's very important that you, in your prompt, because in this case, just prompt, when you're requesting the art piece, that you're very intentional about not replicating an existing style from a certain artist. I know most of the AIs now they have guardrails against that, but some of them don't. Like I said, especially ones which come from the eastern side of the world. So yeah, watch out for that. So if you're asking the AI to create a really wild style which contrasts with the whatever image it was trained on, yeah, it's literally generating something new out of the merge of different styles and different image traces. The actual algorithm should not leave any mark in terms of what it was trained upon. In terms of the how can I say that, moral aspect of it, like I always say, make sure that you're working with AI tools that you trust, that were trained as responsibly as possible. And that's up to you as the, product owner, that you're not literally putting money on the pockets of people who stole other people's art. And it is not true that all of them do it. It's just not true, right? But that's something that you guys have to do the investigation upon. As a rule of thumb, if you're creating assets which are mock-up assets and you intend to do an artist recreation or pass on top of that, you're fully safe. It's not like if you use a sphere or a cube and later you replace it with a full-fledged asset that you created by hand, what's the problem with that, right? No problem. You just replace the cube with a full-fledged human-generated art. So if you're doing that with an AI-generated piece, which even sometimes helped the artist get the final vision of it, I also don't see the problem. If you think about movies like the recent Masters of the Universe, they had the source material, it was inspired on it, but it's a different take, and they were inspired on that. And then you say, oh, but they own the IP, and that's correct. So that's the line of thought, right? Always try to deviate from very derivative materials to like copy paste. Make it just like whatever game. Make it look like game X and Y. Those prompts usually, I wouldn't say usually, but they might get you in trouble. So steer away from that. Keep providing your own reference. Even sketches, believe it or not, simple sketches can make a world of difference that you provide to the machine. It gives the final art soul and a dynamic which averaging across millions of images will never provide to it. So yeah, using good old pen and paper to provide sketches is a great approach. There are many tools that we'll be discussing through the course that I use regularly that will give you much better chance of providing really good quality material and most notably material which can be replaced later, right? So yeah, that's it. If I use the triple DCC bridge with Blender Maya 3D Max, honestly, I prefer to just export that in FBX. There are other formats like GLB, which are being really well regarded lately, and some tools like auto animators, auto riggers, which are much better than just Mixamo. Mixamo is basically for humanoids, right? So if you want to auto rig a dragon of sorts, you're better off with using other tools. And yeah, we'll be talking about that too throughout the course. Yeah, finally got my slides going. Sorry about that. And which DCC do I use with? I use Maya and Blender. Blender, well, so I really like Blender for modeling. Really, really like it for modeling. I never thought I would like it better than Maya because I used it in pre 2.4 days, which it was terrible. Blender itself, Maya was so much superior. Nowadays, I honestly prefer Blender. But for animation, I still prefer Maya. And for humanoid animations, I prefer Motion Builder. Maybe because I'm old school, maybe because I just think it's faster and more accessible. But that's me. I used it for so long time. But yeah, I would go and mention Maya and modeling Blender. Rigging, I also prefer rigging. In Maya, there's a tool called NG Skin Tools, which is free and it's just amazing for skinning. I don't think there's anything even anywhere near close to that in Blender's world. I've used many, right? I've used many tools like UV. I prefer UV in Blender, by the way. It's not because it's native UV, but um, some of the custom tools that you can buy for it for like $10, $15 are just amazing. Zen UV is my recommendation right now. Yeah, there's a pretty big question here about authoring. I'll be talking about that in a second. Let's just get back to, and like I said, I'm gonna allow for a couple minutes before we end that. So yeah, just some brief comments that the job's moving up the stack. The scar scale is no longer typing. So the affordability of coding, right? Actually spitting out code in quantities, that's no longer a thing in the sense that the value dropped dramatically for just pumping out lines of code. The problem is what value does those lines of code bring to you, right? Um, So we just came out of a generation or a time where spitting out thousands of lines of code required a large team. And having that ability in a very cheap service or even locally, it's still super expensive, I know, to get it running on your personal computer in a reasonable, fashionable, usable, let's say, way, it's expensive. We're talking about at least a 5 grand US dollars machine, at least, to get it kind of sort of working. Like the answer that you would get from online service in like 10 seconds, you take like 1 minute and a half, ballpark. But if you want 100% privacy for data, because as much as you should use the privacy settings on the models so they don't train on your input and your answers, which is something I always do because I don't feel, I don't feel comfortable with training their product when I'm paying them to use their servers, right? Doesn't make sense. Anyways, it's as much as you do that, some people just say, hey, I'm only going to use LLMs if I have it running on my machine. And that's an option that you have these days, and it'll get more and more affordable. I'm 100% sure that if you just think about the Pareto scale and the way that things are miniaturizing like dramatically over the years, it's impossible to imagine that in like maybe 3 to 5 years we don't have customized AI powered processors like nowadays we have GPUs. We're starting to see that coming out from NVIDIA. It's still too expensive, but the price will come down, and then everybody will have a GPU in their machines, and I don't know, maybe AI, PU, whatever it's called, and just to run AI locally. And then you have to balance out what you gain from constantly evolving online service, which continuously train on online data, and how much of that online data will be polluted, right? That's a pretty long conversation. Just taking some glimpses, some glimpses here. But anyways, the thing is, code nowadays is cheap. Quality code is not, and we have to understand that. So there's the lower level code churning out, right? And you have this high volume of what we call plausible code, but to make that coherent, testable, and understandable, editable, if you need to, that's something else. Okay. So that's a very simplified history of how we got where we are now. And I said 80s, 90s, but that's not true. It's actually before the before the 2000s. You can make it like that. You had the programmer and the software engineer or software analyst, very different roles, and like very different pay ranges as well. And you would get the software engineers literally drawing on paper, envisioning the process, how that would work once implemented. Why? Because implementing the code was extremely expensive. So you had to make super sure that the code would work well once it was done. Okay, so and then it was handed off to the actual programmers, and then they would actually go to the machine, the terminals. I actually worked in those times, so I can tell you guys that it was very strict and very error prone. Compiling a very simple program could take 3 to 5 minutes, a very simple one. So it was a struggle. So planning beforehand was critical, and you can already start getting, understanding where I want to get with that circular line of thought. So in the 2000s, we got better tools. We got things like Java and, faster compilers and visual IDEs. There was no such thing before that. And basically, programmers started taking more of the engineering work. Even Delphi and other tools, which Visual Delphi, by the way, which were like visual. We had blocks and drawing lines. And people who drew UMLs on paper, they wouldn't do that. They were too elite for that. So that started making the shift. But in 2010, especially after the crash in 2008, everything, the economy got very harsh. So cloud services started flourishing, and developers were basically moved into operations, data platforms, basically moving slowly into those cloud services because they would make, they actually made code cheaper and the accessibility cheaper. You already started having, good mobile devices, which could do way more than it could before, iPhones, better iPhones and such. And then we got to the 2020s. Oh, and by the way, into 2010s, what happened really was the older software engineer started to disappear. Why? Because it was expensive and the industry was in recess. So this skill was almost lost in a sense, right? So, and everything moved to the cloud, but it was hectic. Like in 2010s, and I was actually managing a studio back then. I started managing in 2015, and it was hectic. It was like throw tons of developers on a problem and throw it to the cloud. So the cloud people had to be great. They had so, and then there was the rise of the DevOps, which was like the master of knowledge of the backend, and the front end guys were just hitting their heads on the wall and not having any real structure. That was hectic. In the 2020s, we got the pandemic. Early 2020s, we're still there, but the pandemic totally changed the demand curve. Like everyone wanted digital entertainment, games, they wanted digital services, locked at home, etc., etc. So we got this rapid hiring curve where basically we needed lots of people thrown onto the problem, and there was no AI to speed that up, right? So you check that contrast from starting 2023 slowly with Copilot and such, not that great, and then starting with just completing lines, and then suddenly you started completing small functions, mathematical functions, and that was already great help. And when I see programmers these days saying, "Hey, this generating code for me," I keep asking myself, dude, are you serious? Have you never used Stack Overflow? Have you never copied an entire block of code from Stack Overflow? Oh, but I had to wire things up. Oh, great. So now you don't need to use find and replace anymore. Congratulations. I know it's a bit cynical, but I keep asking myself, are people really serious when they say that? Do they think that they were not being assisted by IDEs, refactoring, which literally had a form of artificial intelligence to detect all the points in the code base that were actually used by that function? Oh, but that's a different thing. Yeah, it's different because we're evolving, right? So things will just keep getting amplified. And then there's always the problem that not understanding that programming is not about the implementation, it's about the logic of it. And that's what we're going to get to in a second. And finally, we got to 2025, where agents reward who can actually specify, integrate, and validate. Remember what I said? The concept, the intention, the execution, how well it connects to the rest of your ecosystem, and your evaluation to validate that it's actually a good product, which only a good old-fashioned human brain can do. So yeah, we had all this retrofit where now finally we have architects and system thinkers getting back into the game again. So remember when I said, in the slide that we had software engineers and they kind of disappeared in the 2010s? Well, guess what? They're on high demand now because suddenly all the effort that had to go to programming is no longer a problem. The actual programming, the conversion from intent and architecture to the binary code, which is actually what the machine chews up and uses at the end of the day, end of the loop, this was reduced to a very small fraction, right? It's not free, of course, but it's just so much cheaper. And basically, that's where we are now. So how do we resurrect this art? How do we regain the ability that was lost in the post-2008 crisis, where basically system designers and software system designers were dropped in favor of higher skilled programmers, which could do a little bit of software design, and that was enough, right? How do we resurrect that? So again, AI makes low-level code cheap. It's autocomplete on steroids, we already said that. Fast generation glue code, boilerplate, tests, variations. Tests, oh my God, 2010s, programmers, they hated the test. Well, we all do, right? It's pretty hard on you to stop and, oh, amazing Sunday morning. What will I do today? Let me create something cool. No, let me write tests. I spend the whole day writing tests. Dude, nobody wants to do that. It is terrible. People just struggle against it. And companies just created, back then, different sorts of, I don't know, perks for the developers to get excited about something that's totally unexciting. But the thing is, nowadays you can just write tasks, like this, just snap. And again, it's it's repetitive. It's it's just workload. It's almost like find and replace in a sense, where just take, it's kind of like boilerplate and just adapt to this function. Yeah, the outcome has to be this, the input is this, whenever the input is that, you get this kind of output. It's boring. It's something that a machine should be doing. A programmer should never be proud, a human programmer should never be proud of, oh, I manually do my whole task. I haven't heard a single person say that. Curiously, right? Because if we're complaining that machine is generating code now and real programmers don't do it, why don't I see a single programmer complaining that the AI can generate tasks for them? I think that's a valid question, right? So the bottleneck now moves to what? Design. The thing is, what should exist? What is it? What's the product? There's no longer the concern about which is a mistake. Oh, if I build, they will come. They will not come. Not necessarily, right? So you can just create and iterate products much faster and go from idea to actual iteration. And you as evaluator, and then you say, okay, that's good enough. That's an MVP. That we put it to market. This has been shrunk to really thin layer, right? Really thin. You can publish things on HIO like this. You can publish even on Steam really quickly. And they have their own engine there, Source 2, which is being wrapped by Sandbox, which is a really exciting platform, if you ask me, which will soon be able to output their games directly to Steam without requiring Sandbox as a platform. And all those engines, free engines, Unreal, it's insane. So the thing is, what should we build? And that's what design's about. So talking about AI-powered game development, it is talking about design itself. You cannot skip that. Okay, it's actually the goal. It's actually what you should be focusing on. And then we have to talk about software systems design or just system design. System design is a bit too broad. Usually people confuse or just make this connection from system design to online services, microservices, whatever. But most importantly, software systems design, to make it specific, it's a two-way street where you have the product owner, which has intent. You have now once again, you have the architect. And it's not like the architect disappeared, right? To make that clear. In the 2010s, architects did not disappear. They were still there, but they were focused on the cloud, right? So you had still have some companies still do it. I worked in a couple old-fashioned projects up to really recently. But basically, the architect is on the back end, is on the cloud services, AWS, etc., and that's really well built. But on the front end aspect, that was lost. It's lost art. It's insanity. And even for games, like the messy code that you get in the smaller game company, even on bigger game companies, to be honest, it's insane. It's you look at it, it hurts your mind to look at that kind of code base. Honestly, it's terrible because there was no architecture. It's just feature creep, feature after feature after feature, and you have no solid foundation. Things are just stacked up, and then you start getting hacks because the system was not never supposed to get this kind of feature. And now the product owner, which is if it's just you or just a small team, is a designer at the same time, wants a new thing. Oh, I think this new feature will change my game. And then you have to hack because it's a hack, because your system does not support that. And why does that happen? Because we no longer have software system designers working on the front end. And the game is a front end in itself. It's the actual interaction device, right? And then you have the two-way communication with the builder. What does that mean? Formerly, we had the programmer. Now we have our AI slave. So it has to be a two-way communication. You can't just say to the machine, "Yeah, LLM, give me this game." Oh yeah, perfect, good one shot, thank you. No, this is not going to happen. Not for a serious game. Maybe for a prototype. Won't happen for a serious game. Not a serious game. For a real production worthy game. So How do you keep this communication flowing? There are many strategies. How can you actually understand what the machine builds so that you can keep interacting with it and making it better, and even help it pinpoint, okay, look at this part of your architecture. That's not great. That's not what I told you to do. That deviates from my goal for this project. You need that. How do you do it? If the machine is pulling off 50,000 lines of code in, I don't know, half an hour, how do you review that? People trying to review the whole code base of generated by LLM tell me that they didn't understand a thing. They didn't understand that it's not like you won't need to review parts of the code, but first you need to understand it on a broad level, on an architectural level, and then you have to be able to detect where each part of the code is implemented in terms of class segmentation, and how is that built? How do the interfaces work? How does data flow? That's what the old-fashioned software system designer did. And it's just something that we have to resurrect. If we don't, we're doomed. We'll be just slaves to machine that we can understand what it's doing. And we keep spending tokens and tokens and tokens and not really getting what we want. And getting to the point where I've seen many game developers getting to, where we just say, yeah, not exactly what I wanted, but good enough. I'll ship it. That's not good enough, guys. We have to be better than that. So yeah, we have to move towards system design. Use AI as an intelligent duck. That's really important. And I don't want to take too much time because I still want to go to Unreal and show a little bit of the MCP thing going. But use it for the designing aspect as a brainstorming partner, adversarial questioner, that's very important, as a documentation assistant, and option generator, and never the final authority. I had almost 2 days chat with a single design document. I'm not exaggerating. And I'll be showing you guys what I did in a nutshell really quickly here, just so you get an idea. Let me just find it. I think it's on my other screen. Let me just get it. Yeah, this one. For that one, I used a skill by Matt Pocock called Grill Me. Grill Me is just amazing. Basically, I had the sketch for the Notion document where it started documenting the version of One Wars of this game. And I basically laid out this, and you guys can find it online, right? You don't need to copy that. You just search for grill dash me. Matt Pocock's the name of the designer. It's just amazing skill. And you don't have to use it as a skill. I didn't use it as a formal MD file skill in ChatGPT. I just copied, pasted it because I was in a rush. I just wanted to get it started. But, honestly, you should use it as a skill. But what it does is it generates questions and separates those questions in rounds. Okay, so it first reads the Notion document, fetches the pages, and of course you give it access to you integrate it with Notion first. Sorry, let me have some water. And then you start asking for it to grill you with questions. Basically, you want to make sure what it should infer. Why? Because it shouldn't infer anything. You should be able to clarify anything that's not clear in the document. And usually it's clear in your mind, but you didn't put it on paper. And that's fine. We can never um, think about everything that could raise questions in someone else's mind, and LLMs are excellent for that. So it made questions that in the beginning was very simple. It does give you recommended answers. And usually it'll give you like up to 10 questions and then you answer. And if you want, you add a bit more context. Yeah, this one will be built probably for sandbox engine, etc., etc. The style, then you add more information, or you just reply. Or if there's a hierarchy, you say, yeah, this is first, this is second, and so on and so forth, right? And so you keep going with rounds. And it's amazing how many good questions you get. Like I would say at least 50 to 60% of the questions are very good. Some of them are just, you didn't clarify it and you should, but some of them will just make you think through details that will affect your project. And you see that it's very thorough in all the questions. And after, I spent literally more than a day on that because I wasn't doing it in a row, of course. I was just taking breaks and updating the document myself, asking it to, okay, just check what it did in the document, etc. And see how long was that? Pretty damn long, right? But the result is so much better GDD, if you want to call it that. I this one I did it just as mostly a single page. I'm going to show you guys the Notion document, but this was, oh my God, so many. This was 180 questions. It got to a point where I asked it how long will that last because I was getting tired. Seriously, sometimes it's just in my car driving. I was just using the mobile version, and I just asked it to use the one stored in my desktop machine, so I could just keep answering questions. Of course, I was driving, so I just made it use sound to voice it, and it would voice back the response. And sometimes just the latter. And I asked it to start making it one by one because of this. Because, of course, if it would give me like 5 or 10 questions, I wouldn't remember the first after I heard the last one. So I started to ask it to adapt to the system, and it worked really, really well. So, and that's the final document. And you see that I had decided to use mostly the toggle heading version, right? And parts of it, I needed, I wanted some specifics like mathematical adjustments or tweaks, which I had an idea to do, but it was really handy to get it done and add it here. So now I got to the point where I just break that into implementation details. And that's when I have a second document just establishing the harness of the project structure. How do I want the interface to work? How do I want the parameters? What are the main classes, not all of them, but the main classes that I want to have control of because they will be critical, like the game manager, like the unit class, like the mobility class, or as I call it, locomotor, and so on and so forth, right? So you have all this detail in a very concise document. And the best part is that you can quickly convert this document into a skill, basically a game design skill. Why is that important? Because by breaking it down like that, think about it with me for a second. Text chat in GPT is now free, regardless of and I'm not selling GPT. There are other plan tools like that, right? So especially the Asian ones, they're pretty good at chatting overall and very cheap, regardless. Even the free plans, they're great. So you can just use chat. That's a chat, right? And you create a document that's gonna reduce your token cost when you're actually implementing the code. Will reduce it by not tenfold, 100-fold. I'm not kidding, because it's going to get the context memory. It'll be compressed in a small text document, which calls a skill. It's just an MD, a markdown file. It's going to guide the process from there on. So it's just amazing how much you can save and how much more control you can get by using this kind of process. Okay, so that's a way for you to think about the intelligent duck, as I call it. It's a term that I brought from duck programming, which is basically a technique that you put a rubber duck next to your desktop and you just start talking to it. It won't respond. So this is a much better duck programming aspect, right? So yeah, why software design becomes more important. And John Ousterhout said that really well. With AI tools, software design is going to become more and more important. And he said something else. He said that it'll be a larger, and I have this written here on my second screen, it'll be a larger and larger fraction of what developers spend their time on, which makes it even more sad that we don't really teach software design in our universities at all anymore. Why don't we do it? Because, like I said, it's the lost art in the sense that the market stopped valuing it. And now we're full circle at the point where it's more valuable than anything else that you can do in terms of software because language doesn't matter anymore. The technology doesn't matter anymore. Oh, is it verse? Doesn't matter. Is it C++? Doesn't matter. As long as you can, understand it in broad strokes, the structure, the loops, the whiles, the fors, the method calls, the return, which is kind of like standard in any language, pretty much, high level language at least, you'll be good. You'll be able to review code and most importantly, quickly edit code when needed, not even using the element. Okay, so that's the kind of the thing that I want you guys to keep in mind. I know we're getting close to our time limit, but I don't want to take so long of that because I want to show you guys a little bit inside. Let me just dock this guy here. Inside Unreal Engine, I have this project. This was created in our game developer programming class, right? The number 13, this one. Let me just show you guys real quick. This one is already converted to C++. And if you're guessing, let me just open a quick parenthesis here. So what we have now is both the option of going UEFN, which is Unreal Editor for Fortnite. It used to be called Unreal Engine for Fortnite, which does have verse, which is like, it's not like, it's what will be used later down the road in Unreal Engine 6. But it's very important that you guys understand that blueprints will not go away immediately, not even right after Unreal Engine 6 release, which will be next year, right? Sometime, probably earlier. Unreal Engine itself, this one here, does not have any verse support at all. So it's not possible in this version of the engine to make your code in verse. So how will we tackle the class? And that's an interesting question. So of course we could go UEFN and have, oh yeah, have verse, etc. But UEFN is very specific in the way that it does things, you know, the spawning points, the artifacts that it uses. It's way more restrictive than what I get in Unreal. And Unreal is going in the direction of UEFN, but not entirely. So two things to understand. First, blueprints are not going away immediately. It's going to take some time, probably I would guess at least 4 minor releases. So this is the major release is 5. So when you get 6, this will be 6.0, and then you got like 6.1, 3, 2, 3, 4. About 6.4, they might drop it. But also important, probably there will be a blueprints replacement, right? So do not be scared of it. And third, and very important point, you can so easily, and I want to show you guys that because I don't know why people haven't realized that, but it's super obvious to me. Let me just open some blueprint here. I don't know, maybe for the NPC tank. Right, let's see if it's simple enough. So we got this here. You got the event, try apply damage, and what it does, it's takes the armor of the tank and it has a delay until next frame just to make sure it actually got the reference. Otherwise, you can get some errors because of stuttering of frames, etc. And then it sets a percentage from the health bar according to the percentage value of the health. Basically, health divided by total health, right? And then gives you the percentage and sets it in here. And that's a very simple one. Let's see another one. Let me get the spawner. Yeah, thanks, spawner. I think that one is pretty simple. So it just gets an actor, one specific actor transform and sets a timer. And after the timer's done, it just basically calls this event, which spawns the actual actor, right? Very simple blueprint logic. And it gets a component by class, move to, and sets it, and sets some variables. Not very complicated. On the contrary, right? Very simple. So you could easily do this. Let me just give myself some room here. Okay, so I just take a screenshot. I'm using a tool called ShareX, and I'm taking a screenshot of this. Actually, it's preferable to get this right part because it gives you the variables variable types. It's gonna help a little bit, not too much. Then you just take a screenshot of that, right? And yeah, and that's our tank spawner. It's not a complicated logic, but suppose you're like in 6.3 and you're like, oh my God, 6.4, they're gonna drop blueprints. What can I do? And you start getting dashboard, don't be. Oh, I don't know how to code in C++. By the way, they will keep C++, right? Oh, I don't know how to code in C++. I kind of understand verse, but I'm not a great programmer. I just use blueprints in my whole life. And I see programmers desperate. Like I would, if I couldn't program myself very well, I would be desperate if they didn't have added an MCP, which is the bridge to any AI tool that you want, so that the AI tool can understand not just your code, but the entire environment, so that it can lay out props, lay out, I don't know, whatever you want, elements of the game, gameplay, spawn positions, whatever you want. But most importantly, you can get a logic like that, which is not even complicated, it's very simple. And you can do, for instance, let me get in here. Let me go to the actual project. I think I can just, yeah, let's just open Codex for that. Uh-huh. They renamed Codex to just ChatGPT for probably business reasons. And okay, let me just add a project right here real quick. I make it local because if you set it to local, it's going to use. And by the way, it's not restricted to ChatGPT. If you can use anti-gravity, which is Google's solution. You can use Cursor, which the free tier is great as well. And you can just tie up with any model they want. We're going to be seeing all of that throughout the course. But anyways, I just use GPT because that's what I got here open. So just set it to local, and so that I can have access to all files within a certain project folder. So let me call it thanks. Oops, which is the name of the project. Thanks. EP13. And now I go to the actual project, which is should be documents. Yeah, that'll be in real projects. Real projects and a GDP. Thanks, GDP13. That's one. Let me just see if I should. No, it's fine. I'll just leave it here. Okay, so from the project, I have entire access. You can have like other assets if you want to work with concepts in the same project. You just add or 3D models that you want to bring up and put in game and scale them down or whatever you want. Really, you just add as many folders you want to be working on here. And okay, so I should have the project here. So by creating this new chat within the project, I basically given access to the files which are in there, right? Specifically. And like I said, I think I told that to you guys, but this is already converted to C++. As soon as you create a single C++ class, if you don't have it yet, if your project blueprints, just create a single C++ class, and it's going to be converted into a C++ project, which is still compatible with everything. Just now, to rebuild it, when you change versions, you have to build it from Writer or Visual Studio. So it's updated. That's the main difference, really. And every time you run the editor, it's better run it from your ID of choice. But anyways, what I want is this. Okay, so I basically ask it to create a C++ class um, to work as just as the blueprint version of the NPC tank spawn. Yeah, attached screenshot. If you want, that's inferable, so no big deal. So I have the models here. Yeah, I won't go into many details, but if it's a bit more complicated, you go to Sol and you could Terra if it's very simple. And honestly, this could go Luna pretty easily. So I just use Terra Medium, so I don't spend too many credits there. I don't think it'll be needed really. And yeah, I could just place in the proper folders. Place generated code. That's also inferable. I'm just taking a bit more control. And there you go. So it'll just infer what I try to do. And while it's doing it, it will tell you what's doing. It'll capture it, spawn, transform it, startup, run a looping spawn timer, spawn the 10 class, and assign its move to component destination. I first check the project is in C++ classes and naming conventions so it lands in the right module. See? Pretty smart, huh? So while it's doing it, let me show really quick you guys how to set up the MCP. You go to, well, first you go to plugins. And there's a step-by-step guide. Just search for MCP for your engine. It's gonna give you the precise step-by-step. But just real quick, you just make sure you have search real MCP. You have to turn it on. MCP. This one has to be enabled. This one's not necessary yet. And you also need the editor, or is it console, I believe. Just, yeah, that one. Terminal. Terminal. You need that on. You also need the editor toolset. Right? Enabled. And once you toggle on those three, you just restart the editor. Okay, of course I have already done that. Okay, what was that? I don't know. Something with writer, I believe, because of the generation of new code that's being done in the background. And now you go to editor preferences, no longer here. Editor preferences, and here you will go to MCP or just scroll down to Model Context Protocol. Make sure you enable auto start server so whenever you run the editor, it's started as a server, which means it'll be awaiting for communication messages through this URL path from your local host using this port, right? Just something you can do in your browser, really. It'll just use regular TCP communication to talk to the engine itself. So, and you can ask, you could ask now, hey, but you just used GPT directly with code generation. Yeah, because I wasn't needing the context of the project. But if I needed, for instance, sprinkle those rocks, around the radius, maybe a 600 units radius from the center of the map, and rotated randomly, et cetera, that's something which requires MCP. It's not pure code, right? It needs understanding of the actual scene of the actual project that you're working on. And yeah, that's when you would be using MCP. I want to change things like, I want to change the color of the sky. I want it reddish or purplish or whatever. You can do that. Of course, you can do it manually, but you can use the MCP for that as well. Okay. So yeah, these are the first steps. And finally, you go to editor preferences. Let me find, yeah, editor preferences, general terminal. Yeah, here, terminal. If you want to work with the terminal, which is a faster way to, well, not necessarily faster, it's just a way to not need graphical IDE like what I was using on GPT or any other one really. There are many open projects to do that. I've used a lot of anti-gravity. I've used Cursor a lot. I think Cursor is probably the best one because it's like VS Code integrating with all the tools you get from XAI's own intelligence. They got Composer basically for free, which is it used to be a bad model, right? But nowadays a very robust one because extensive training from the massive models. The data centers from XAI Space. XAI, they changed their name again. But anyways, you add those two lines and no need to, copy paste that. It's just something that you can copy paste from the article on the Apex site. And you just point to the folder where the generated JSON is placed. And to generate the JSON, first you come in here and you paste this command. here. Model context protocol.generate client config. All means that it will work for both Cursor, Codex or GPT, and Anthropics, Claude, etc., etc. I generally favor Codex because of its superior cost benefit ratio, right? But nowadays you have other solutions like we'll be discussing in the course about Kimi K3, which is Marvel's new model, GLM, great model for coding as well, and much, much cheaper than any of the, well, not all of them, because now I think OpenAI is really fighting fiercely to not lose its market share for programming, especially because it already lost, the race in a sense to Anthropic. In my opinion, Claude's Anthropic's code overall it looks more natural. It looks a bit more human generated. That doesn't always mean it's better, right? It really depends on your style in a sense. But both solutions tend to be very good, right? I think those are the two top players. And I'm not diminishing Gemini. I use it a lot for some things, but for programming specifically, I feel it's second best. And the same for Grok yet, although Grok is quickly getting there, right? Because again, the massive data centers, the more you train it, the better they become. So it's getting there really zoomingly fast. Okay, so with that, you get the terminal. I just use window terminal, and from terminal you can run Codex straight. If Codex is set up, which is the second step, you can just run it. Yeah, it's not installed for this project. So yeah, you have to install it for this specific project. So you can run it in here and then you talk to the terminal. You can dock it here if you want. So there's an extra step to get it sorted out. Let's just see what, yeah. So let's see what it was generated here. Sorry that I'm rushing, but our time is literally over. So I'm already pushing a little bit, but I allow a couple questions still. So yeah, let's see what it did. Basically, I think our writer crashed. I think so. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. No, it's here. I thought it crashed. I thought that weird message. So let's see what it created for us. It's in public. The header, the private is, yeah, the CVP is in private as it should. So let's check that. Okay, so source, private, public. Okay, so we got the header here. Not seeing it. Let's see what happened. Maybe it got locked access or didn't refresh. Let me open the source. Show local history. Let me check the actual folder. See what happened there. Next, thanks. Dun, dun, dun. And source. Let's see it actually generated. Yeah, it did generate it. I know I did. I think it was that error message didn't update it here. So anyways, let's just open it straight. Oh, that's strange that it didn't refresh. Probably if I reopen it, it would work. Meanwhile, I just open it in, so we can check the code real quick. I'll just open it here, or just open a second session of Writer, maybe. Let's see. There's Writer. Yeah, see what it does. I did open here. It just didn't add. Yeah, I have to refresh it. Anyways, here's the CPP generated one and the public Explore. Oops, not that one. Writer. Yeah, I give it an always. No problem. Okay, so here you can see the generated code. It basically created a new class, which you can just instantiate in the editor. A NPC tank spawner and a actor. Generated body, as it should. The macros are here, the includes are here. You have the properties with the proper declaration, with the pointers, the types of variables, the comments for what each variable does, like spawn delay, and it is a subclass of NPC 10 class, etc., etc. So yeah, header looks perfect. Let's see on CVP what it does, the actual logic. It has a timer. It got the world timer manager, set the timer with the actual handle that defined, and yeah, initial delay as defined in the header, and then it spawns a new tank. That's what it calls, right? And there's a log for an error. If it added some error checking. It checks at the top for all the conditions that should make it not go on, which is a good programming practice again, instead of having multiple nested ifs. And yeah, finally, it exposes what it has to do. And that's just the spawning aspect of it. So it tries to spawn. If it has an error, it stops. Otherwise, it feeds up the move to component, setting the target of it. Because basically, it's a spawner class which instantiates the tank and sets its target position. And it can just drop the target position so you can have multiple lanes for spawn tanks, right? That's what it does gameplay wise. And finally, once for stop spawning, it clears the timer. Looks good to me. So let's just real quick try that in game. The name of it is ANPC tank spawner. And let me just get tank spawner. Where is that? Game level, lighting, pathways, scenery. Here we have a tank spawner, right? And it sets as a target the tank destination. So it spawns tanks here, goes here. Very simple. So, but yeah, you can see that it's a blueprint. So probably have to, I would just try a live recompile because it's faster. Okay. If it doesn't work, it will need a full recompile. For simple things, live recompile, it's a lifesaver. It's very fast. But if it breaks because, some binary inconsistency didn't allow it to go through. And to change information, backboard include order, yada yada. It's just doing its thing. Succeeded. Awesome. So no errors. And wrote, build patch. Once you see the green lines, you're good to go. You got success message. So should be there. So just to ANPC tank spawner. You should have the class now here. NPC tank spawner. And you can see that it is a C++ class, like obviously, and I can just let me just open it to see. Yeah, that's just the code. And you have to inherit it so it becomes an actual actor. So let me just get it from blueprints and create a new blueprint class, which inherits from NPC tank spawner. And just like this, I got the NPC, I call it the PA NPC tank spawner. Just differentiate the name. So now it can be instanced. And yeah, there you go. You can see in details that you got the same attributes that we have from the blueprint version, right? So you see initial delay, spawn delay, the tank class, move to component, everything just the very same as the blueprint. And I can just, duplicate this guy, move it over here as a children and set it as a destination for this element. So I can just select it here or drag it straight. I have to do it from here. Hold on. Let's click here and click here. Okay, that's fine. I just, bit of more. What happened? NPC tank destination. Gotta check. Oh, it can go from here. Okay, awesome. All right, so I set it. Just the same. I can even delete this guy. It should work exactly the same. Just hit play. Taking damage, but you see that the lane's working perfectly. Obviously the respawn rate's too high, didn't set it, but you can see that it works just fine. Okay. Yeah, guys, that's what I wanted to show. Sorry, the time's pretty short. A lot I could show more, but yeah, if you like this kind of content, you believe you should learn systems design for programming, definitely check out the new AI Dev course that we built with lots of care and passion for you guys to become really future-proof developers for Unreal Engine. And we should be using a properly compiled beta version of Unreal Engine 6. Yeah. How we do that? Well, Unreal Engine 6 is already a valid branch from their official repository. So I started building it yesterday. I succeeded, but I couldn't get it running for today because of lack of disk space. I need 600 gigabytes for that. So I have to clear up some space, but I didn't get any errors for dependencies and such. So yeah, I'm pretty confident we have this personalized build for our course where we will be able to use the latest stuff from 5.8 plus verse coding and compilation, which is already integrated in their internal branch, right? So that'll be really interesting, and it's gonna bring you guys up to par with the latest technology that you'll be seeing in the future, and definitely make you guys way more prepared for job opportunities, which will show up a lot for this conversion curve. Okay, we don't have a lot of time. I'll just read the questions here. Sorry, guys, the time is really, really short. I also have to collect my kid. So, but yeah, let me quickly read regarding IP and content, balance speed and quality, control ownership, combine sketching, fast illustration, LLM. Definitely, Mazen. It's something I highly recommend. Um, there are a couple of tools online which runs in your local GPU. If you want to search that, search for Comfy UI, COMFY, Comfy UI. It runs locally in your machine. You can use it to train on your own art without any external reference art. It's amazing. MCP like Plan is a very good model. I do recommend you guys check the latest Kimi K3 is really close to Fable, which is impressive considering its price. The name of the skill, Grill Me, GRILL/ME. Search for that, Grill Me. Basically, it's gonna grill you with questions, right? That's the thing. The newest one is Grill Me with log, something like that. It's just a modernized version which outputs skill MD at the end. Design-driven development, bullet points and code formatting. I have collapsible sections. It's just shortcuts, really. Share real quick. Basically, I just let me get it. I lost GPT across so many screens. But yeah, you just use Alt 7, numeric 7 for bullet points. Alt numeric 7. You use Alt 26 on quickly 2 6 on your numeric keypad for arrows for subsections, and you have things like Alt 8, Alt 9, and so on and so forth, right? Just a couple of tricks that I've learned to use. Verse available to the public. If you use UEFN, yeah. Basically, you have to install Fortnite as a game, download game from Epic's loader, and then once you have the game done, search for UEFN, a real editor for Fortnite. Okay, and that'll give you verse compilation. But of course, you'll be dealing with it's very similar looking. I would open it here, but not enough time. But it's similar looking, but the approach is very different. You have things like scene graph and the artifacts, they're different. The way to process things, we'll be discussing those during the course as well. Yeah, or you download and compile Unreal Engine 6 branch. Just like I said, make sure you have more than 500 gigabytes free in your hard drive, and preferably 64 gigs RAM in your machine. Otherwise, it's a waste of time, really. Yeah, that's it. Guys, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed. There's a lot to discuss. It's a very exciting moment in the time of human history, and make sure you guys are surfing the wave at the top of it instead of being swollen by the wave and it's precious, right? Because it's already crashing on top of all of us. So yeah, let's make sure we're the best game developers we can be using the best technology that we have available to us. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Cheers.